I have one thought just to throw out before we introduce our next speaker. There's a lot of political risk right now in Europe and North America because we have some major elections coming up. So that, I think, adds to the uncertainty and the unpredictability of what responses may accrue or may be made. We're facing a presidential election in the United States, and France is in the throes of its presidential election right now, and one wonders how one can react given that political uncertainty as well. So I thank you for your presentation, and I turn now to our second panelist today, an old friend again of Strategy International. This is Fabio Liberti, who is the head of research at IRIS in France, in Paris, and he will be sharing with us his thoughts on the world strategic order in the year 2020. Fabio.
Thank you, Professor Wiesner. Let me thank you, first of all, Mariusz, for the wonderful organization of this conference. I was in Thessaloniki for the first event. It was already successful, but actually I'm personally really happy of seeing that Strategy International is developing and that we can have really interesting debate and discussion in Thessaloniki on international relations. Actually, Mariusz asked myself of giving a presentation on the World Strategic Order in 2020. You must know that basically I work a lot on European Union. I'm an expert of European Union issues. So I've tried to imagine how the world can be in 2020 and especially what could be the role of the European Union in 2020. But since I'm just a researcher and not a magician, please do not ask me too precise question. And no question on if PAOK or Aris and are they winning the Champions League, because I cannot respond on that. My conclusion was something about Iran, and hearing Dan Solomon, I will be obliged of anticipating my conclusion. I think that Iran is a key point for international relations in these next 10 years. I think that European Union have to decide if we want to be part of a Western alliance against the rest of the world. That's a simplification, of course, but or if we want to develop a multilateral system. If we want to develop a multilateral system, we need to stop with preemptive attack and these kind of things. I think it's just crucial on the way if we want to strengthen the global governance, we have to acknowledge that the world is changing. And I know that today Iran is a menace, is a threat, I agree on that. At the same time, when we stress the fact that we are going to lower our defense budget, you should consider that the United States have a $600 billion defense budget, while Iran defense budget is 5 to 10 billion. So who is menacing who? I know that's quite unusual as a position, and I know that there is a nuclear threat, and that Iran signed the non-proliferation treaty, they should not accede to nuclear weapon. But I think that we should also consider their point of view. But if I come back to my presentation, I have a first slide on the forecast analysis. Why? Because forecast analysis is something quite difficult. You can take the linear evolution of the world, you take the situation today, you imagine the trend, and you imagine where we will be in 2020. But you should know that these are some phenomenon of some break-even, some rupture that can radically change the situation. In this PowerPoint, I speak of the end of the Warsaw Pact or the debt crisis. Not all the geostrategy was speaking about the debt crisis, for instance. There was an American economist, Nouriel Roubini, speaking about that, and about the fall of the Warsaw Pact. Really few professor was anticipating this kind of event. So sometimes you have phenomena that radically change the evolution of the history. And take another example. I've been asked in 2012, projecting myself in 2020, but in 2000, the United States were at the apogee of their power. They were the sole superpower in the international stage. And in 2008, many things has changed in only 8 years. Consequences of Iraq, consequences of Afghanistan, September 11, of course, and the Lehman Brothers crash. So in 8 years, the United States lowered their capital of soft power and also of hard power. And I think that in 8 years, the world has become much more multilateral than it was in 2000. So I will just present the way I see the situation, the European Union today. I will try to show you how the situation could evolve, which kind of rupture, which kind of break-even we can assist in the next 8 years. And after that, I will try to show you 3 different scenarios, because when we do some prospective, you can only draft scenario. Today, I start from the point that the European Union is living the worst existential crisis since its beginning. Of course, the debt crisis, but also a crisis of sense of the European integration. I think that we have lost a decade. Between 2000 and 2010, we have focused all our energies in drafting treaty totally incomprehensible for citizens. And also, if as a specialist of European Union, I perfectly understand how difficult it is to find compromise at 27, and how impressive the progress of the Lisbon Treaty are, I still believe that we forgot to convince the public opinion to follow the European Union project. The solution to the debt crisis that has been suggested till today seems to me ineffective. You all know better than myself the situation of Greece, but also the situation of Italy, Spain. I think that one of the reasons of the debt crisis, the most important reason of the debt crisis, is that the financial market perfectly understand that the Eurozone can break apart. Why financial markets didn't speculate against Arizona or California? Just because they perfectly know that the United States will intervene. Why they speculated against Greece? Because they knew that probably the European Union solidarity wasn't that strong. And you have the reason in 2 articles on the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, is the 123 and 125. The Article 123 forbid to the European Central Bank to act as a lender of last resort, and Article 125 is the no bailout clause that has been circumvented in a sense in order to help Greece. So my assessment today is that the European Union is currently totally inward-looking. 16 crisis European Council has been held in 1 year. Nicolas Sarkozy said that he's meeting much more Angela Merkel than Carla Bruni. And I think that is probably honest on this point. And I can imagine what situation he would rather prefer. But also I start from the assessment that European Union is a country that is getting older. If we only want to keep the same ratio between workforce and retiring people, we need almost 2 million migrants per year, with all the social and political consequences this come with. And also, today China is 20% of the world population, as it was Europe in the 20s, at the apogee of European power. Also consider that European Union population in 2020 will be composed at 30% by seniors, and that 61% of the world population will be in Asia. So of course we are assisting to a shifting of the balance of power through the Atlantic to the Pacific. And also when you have a country in which people is aging, of course your political leader have different priorities. Your priorities becomes retirement, your priorities becomes social security, health security, not defense spending. Of course we are downsizing defense spending in Europe, but we are also downsizing retirements. Can we say to European Union that we need to raise defense spending, and we need to cut health security. That just politically is just infeasible. So I think that the demographic evolution will impact the balance of the world order in 2020 with a shift through the Pacific, but also with a change of the situation within the European Union. Germany is declining at a high speed on its demographics. So today all the newspaper told you about this hyperpower of Germany on the European Union. But you should know that in 10 years or 20 years, France will have more population than Germany, and France and United Kingdom will grow up while Germany and Italy will decline. And once again, European Union and the United States will stand for only 9% of the population. So the world is already changing. The United States seems to me weakened by the consequences of the Iraqi conflict and the Afghan conflict. But of course, at the horizon 2020, they will still be the main military power in the world, no doubts on this point. And also you should consider that they are recovering in a much faster way from the economic crisis than the European Union. The emerging countries, of course, they will continue to develop also if tension could appear. And I end this slide with a paradox that is probably not a paradox, it's just the way the world is changing. Could you have imagined 10 years ago the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, saying to Germany what they should do, telling to Italy what they should do? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, IMF was for developing countries. Today, Christine Lagarde, the chief of the IMF, says to Germany and France, your answer to the crisis is not a good one. So that's significant of the switching power which we are assisting. And also China and Russia suggesting some monetary help to European Union countries. Now, if there is no rupture or break-even, I just prepared a slide that show you with the current linear evolution. These are statistics for the IMF of 2010, when we still thought we were in a U recession and not a W one, but still what is significant is that in only 8 years, China will be the first world economy. China GDP will be multiplied per 3, if nothing changes, of course. The United States will be the second world economy. India will be the third one. And the first European Union country will be Germany, just at the 6th place, with a ratio of growth of 30% of the GDP in 10 years. And as you can see, a country like Italy, a European country, will no more be in the top 10. Now, what could change this situation? Many risks could change, of course, the situation. First of all, a worsening of the European crisis, a failure of Greece, followed by speculative attack against Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Spain, could just make explode the Eurozone and European Union. Also, the results of election in some countries during this decade could change the situation. Take Germany. The SPD, the Social Democrat Party, and the Green Party, they are openly assuming their European federalism. So if they win back the power in 2013, you could have a much more pro-European stance in Germany. Russia, can we imagine a revolution against Vladimir Putin? I mean, we have no ideas, but we cannot exclude anything. How many people saw the Arab Spring just 2 years ago? Also, something that could happen if the economic situation worsen again in the United States, we could imagine a new isolationism of the United States. If you see the history of this country, we have always said some phases of expansion and some phases of isolationism. An increase of populism in European states, look at the results of recent elections everywhere in Europe, or also regional or general conflict like a preemptive attack from Israel to Iran or a Western intervention in the area. But also the cycle of the Arab Spring. I was speaking with someone in Paris who had an interview with with the Tunisian president, and the Tunisian president was saying that he fears a new revolution by the end of this year, because the situation is dramatically by an economic point of view. Also, we can imagine